Welcome in. It's time for another edition of the Morning Espresso here on the SDH Network, presented by our friends at Oglethorpe University, Atlanta's premier undergraduate learning experience and soccer powerhouse. Atlanta United did not put up a soccer powerhouse kind of performance in Chester, Pennsylvania, losing 3-0 on Saturday night. An extremely frustrating night that saw two first half injuries, that saw Philadelphia scored the third goal with 10 men and did not see a response, reaction, whatever, however you want to put it, that was expected. It was a pretty even game up until Philadelphia got the opening goal, and it's a great take from Quinn Sullivan, bringing it down off the chest, hitting the volley. No chance for the save. Atlanta couldn't get the ball clear. Game felt pretty even up to that point. Took a while for Atlanta to get going after conceding, but they did, and they finished the first half out okay. I talked about it at halftime, and I was curious to go back and check the final numbers. Atlanta was getting into the final third about as often as Philadelphia did in the first half, but Philadelphia got into the 18 a whole lot more. When you compared final third entries to touches inside the 18, Philadelphia not quite doubled up what Atlanta did in the first half in terms of touches inside the 18, but pretty close with a similar number of entries. I was curious to see what that was going to look like in the second half. Now, remember, game state was part of this. Philadelphia got a second goal fairly early in the second half and then also had a red card not too long after that. So they were very comfortable with the 2-0 lead playing with 10 to sit back deeper and maybe concede those final third entries. But it's pretty surprising that when you look at the second half and you see 64 final third entries for Atlanta and only 9 touches inside the 18, and a few of those were right around the edge of the 18, that's not good enough. And that's not what has to happen when you're trailing. Only 3 key passes in the second half for Atlanta after 6 in the first half. Pedro Almador had 2 of those key passes from crosses from the left, and that was good. That was something I talked about at halftime that you needed to see more of. It just wasn't good enough on a lot of different fronts, and it's very frustrating. And I keep going back to a tweet from our friend Gustavo Rodriguez of Argentina, friend of the SDH Network, friend of our broadcast on 92.9 The Game as well. And Gustavo used the word anxiety to describe the way that the team, or at least an effect on what how the team was playing. And I don't think he's wrong. I think it's interesting in terms of kind of trying to quantify that in a soccer sense. Because I keep thinking to the way that this team has looked as of late, and it feels like they are anxious. They're anxious of making a mistake, which is absolutely not what Ronnie Dyla is telling them. And then when mistakes happen or when they fall behind, sometimes it's not even a mistake. It's just the other team is playing too. And that's the Philadelphia goal for me. Like that's kind of how it falls. You're not able to clear because Philadelphia does a good job. Sleesh has to pop it out wide. Wagner pounces on it in a series of crosses and failed clearances, and the balls are bouncing around. You can't get it cleared. They score, and it's a great goal from Quinn Sullivan. The the reaction to that wasn't good, and it feels like that's where this team is right now. Whereas if things are even, they're worried about something going wrong. If things go wrong, then they can't get going again, and it takes too long. The decent play at the beginning or at the end of the first half, going into the second half, and then 5 minutes in, you get the second goal. It's not quick enough, and then the urgency wasn't there after that. And especially when you get the man advantage after a really intelligent play from Mateusz Klich to draw the second yellow on Jovan Lukic, who was just, it was foolishness from him. Both yellows were foolishness from him, but the urgency isn't there to capitalize. Like, yeah, you had more of the ball. Yeah, you did create some shots, but only 3 key passes in the second half when you're trailing going into it and you have a man advantage for most of it, and you're trailing by 2 5 minutes into the second half. Only 3 key passes is not where it needs to be. Now, injuries were part of this, and losing Steon Gregerson and losing Tristan Muyumba in the first half and having to use two sub windows in the first half, it really made it difficult to adjust and affect the game from the bench, because you either had to make subs at halftime and the team had turned it around at the end of the first half, or you've got to make a bunch in at one window in the second half, also thinking about the possibility of future injuries. And when Noah Cobb goes down, then you're completely, you have to make your subs. You have to just do what you have to do at that point. And that's it's just frustrating. It's just very, very frustrating. It was maybe the most frustrating loss that I can remember. I don't want to be a prisoner of the moment, but everything combined, frustrating about things that happen that are out of your control with injuries and sub windows, things that are, I do think, more in your control in terms of that urgency, in terms of that reaction. And I went back again to look at the reaction to the second goal, and it's extremely noticeable that it's Noah Cobb going around to players trying to get their heads up, get them going, get ready for the kickoff. It's Jay Fortune doing the same. And those are the two players who spoke to the media afterwards. And those are two players who I thought really opened their hearts to the media afterwards. And I'm sure you guys have heard it by now. I'll play clips from it on Atlanta Soccer tonight. John Nelson might play clips from it on SDH AM this morning. I was really happy that they did that. It meant a lot, I think, to fans. I think it should mean a lot to the locker room. I hope that it does, because those are two guys who know what this club means and what it should be, and the performance didn't represent that overall. I'm going to put Bartosz Szlisz in that category as well. I was really impressed with a lot of different aspects of what he did. Was it a perfect performance? No, that you can't expect that, and we've got to stop nitpicking on things, because I've seen people trashing Szlisz for his performance in this game. He ran the most. He led the game in intensive runs, in touches, in passes. He won 10 of his 12 duels. I mean, what more do you want? He passed at 89%. He had to drop to center back after the Noah Cobb injury. He did that while still trying to get the ball forward. He was showing that urgency, down 2-0, making runs forward, trying to jump and be a midfielder when he could, but get back to be a defender when he had to. I was impressed with what we saw. He went in strong on a play and decked somebody. It's something that we've talked about. We talked about it a lot last week. He talked about it. I thought Bartosz Szlisz gave you the kind of personality of performance that you need to see more of from him and from others too. It's something that, look, this is a big week, and this is a game on Saturday in Orlando where it has to look different. And it's not about talent. It's not about analytics. It's not about metrics right now. It's about reaction, and it's about the eye test of how it looks in response to a bad day in Philadelphia on Saturday. We'll find out. We'll be at training tomorrow, training ground dispatch tomorrow afternoon to break everything down that Madison Cruz and I see. Let's talk about MLS around the hole just a little bit. Vancouver, they've got a 4-point lead in the Western Conference. It's a logjam in the East. Columbus and Miami were unbeaten coming into their match. Miami won 1-0 in Cleveland in front of over 60,000 fans, by far the largest crowd to see Columbus in the state of Ohio. The previous record was 31,000 in 1996 at the old Ohio Stadium for a match against the old Metro Stars. But Miami got that win. Charlotte and Cincinnati are tied for the lead on points. They're 1 point ahead of Miami and Columbus. Remember, Miami, I think, has a game in hand because of CONCACAF Champions Cup action. Philadelphia is 3 points back. Charlotte had the huge win over San Diego on the weekend. San Diego did have a red card in that. Charlotte punished them. They already had the lead before the red. Other things that jumped out to me: Seattle with a big win 3-0 over Nashville. First goals that the Sounders have ever scored against Nashville. Pedro de la Vega, Paul Rothrock each had a goal and an assist. LA Galaxy are just still in this situation where it's bad. 1-0 loss to Austin. They are winless in 9 league matches, including CONCACAF play. The Galaxy has won 1 of 13, 1-8-4 in 2025. Missing Ricky Pooch, huge problem. They've had other injuries as well, but there's more to it than that, it seems like, to not be able to get things going. It's the worst start for a defending champion in MLS history. One more, if you missed it, Salt Lake City and Real Salt Lake. It's a return of sorts. The family of late Utah Jazz owner Larry Miller returning to top flight professional sports ownership. They have purchased Real Salt Lake and the NWSL's Utah Royals and America First Field and the Zions Bank Training Center. Around 600 million in total is with the valuation. This is going to be the controlling interest that the Miller family has purchased. So they don't own it 100%, but that's the valuation at 600 million for everything combined. And you're talking about, a leading family in professional sports in Salt Lake City. So it is a good thing for RSL, a good thing for the Utah Royals, and exciting new times for both clubs. Let's move to Mexico. Liga MX. Alex Zendejas, 2 assists. He drew a penalty. Club America, they finished the regular season with a 5-0 win over Mazatlan. They got to second place in the Liga MX table, so they will play one of the play-in teams in the quarterfinals of the Liguilla, the playoffs. The play-in round is Monterrey hosting Pachuca, Juarez hosting Pumas. Cruz Azul bounced into the number 3 spot. They will play León in the quarterfinals. Tigres will play Necaxa. Toluca ended up being your super leader. They won the regular season, and they go in as the number 1 seed. Sergio Ramos, he left last night's match for Monterrey with a hamstring injury. He could miss games in the playoffs. Monterrey's got to get out of the play-in round against Pachuca. James Rodriguez, he was sent off for 2 yellows for dissent in Leon's last match. He's going to miss the first leg of the playoffs against Cruz Azul. UEFA Women's Champions League, Barcelona and Lyon won the first legs. Barcelona dominated at home 4-1 over Chelsea. Sonia Bonpastor's Chelsea tried to sit back, tried to keep some hope intact, but Claudio Pina with a 90th minute goal, her second of the day, that stretches it to a 3-goal lead. That's going to be really difficult for Chelsea to overturn as they're trying to do a quadruple. Arsenal has hope. Lyon got the 2-1 win, a very late goal to win it from Melchi de Mornay. That gave Lyon the 2-1 win in front of over 40,000 fans in London in the first leg. Arsenal's got a shot. They got to go to France in the second leg and overturn that. NWSL, Kansas City Current, they're in first place after they beat the Houston Dash 2-0. Orlando Pride lost for the first time, 1-0 to the Washington Spirit. For the Current, Lola Bonta, another goal from the penalty spot. Kayla Sharples, her first goal for KC. They won their 9th consecutive regular season game, the longest streak in NWSL history. They're the second team in NWSL history to start out 5-0. They also tied a league record by scoring 2 or more goals in 7 consecutive regular season contests going back to last year. Sad news in the NWSL and sad news for U.S. women's national team fans. Trinity Rodman going to have to take some time off for the back injury that she's talked about recently. She's taking time off indefinitely. Team spokesperson said that she is taking time away from team activities to manage her back. We look forward to her returning when she's healthy. Hopefully, that's not going to be too far off in the future, but a big loss for the Washington Spirit. In La Liga, on the men's side, Barcelona, they maintain their lead at the top. 4-3, crazy home win over Celta Vigo. 98-minute penalty from Rafinha. That is what decides it. Hansi Flick's team, they're in the running for a quadruple. They've already got the Spanish Super Cup. They are given, according to Opta, a 91.7% chance of winning the league, although it's not done. They play Real Madrid in the Copa del Rey final on the weekend. They take on Inter in the Champions League semifinal on April 30th. However, Robert Lewandowski does have a hamstring injury, could be out for up to 3 weeks. According to AS in Spain, Real Madrid could bring in an interim coach to lead the team during the Club World Cup from mid-June to mid-July. If they move on from Carlo Ancelotti, and the initial reporting from Sky Sports was that the Copa del Rey final this weekend would be Ancelotti's final match with Real Madrid. Don't know if that's the case. Xabi Alonso is seen as the favorite. Jurgen Klopp's name has come up as a potential contender to take that job. In terms of the interim coach for the Club World Cup, you have Raul, who has been in charge of the second team for a number of years. He's trying to figure out what he's going to do in the long term because he's not going to be considered for the first team job going forward. he could be the interim. Santiago Solari, who has already been a pseudo interim for Real Madrid. The league rules in Spain don't allow you to have true interims. You have to name a coach. Solari did that in the past. He actually won the Club World Cup in 2018 in its previous iteration with Madrid. He took Club America to the CONCACAF Champions League final in 2021, went back to Madrid as the director of football, and that's the role he's in right now. He would make the most sense as the interim. Sarah, other updates quickly. Both African Champions League semifinal first leg ties ended goalless. Egyptian clubs will play the second legs at home. Al Ahly and Pyramids, they've got a big advantage after getting draws against the Orlando Pirates and against the Mamelodi Sundowns in South Africa over the weekend. In France, a supporter was arrested after allegedly throwing an object onto the pitch, which struck an assistant referee. Saint Etienne confirmed in a statement that an individual was arrested after leaving the stadium following their 2-1 win over Lyon. We've had too many conversations about issues like this in France. It's got to get resolved. It hasn't. And I don't know if it's going to, but it's going to continue to be an issue and it's going to continue to affect the health of Liga in the long run. Some issues there in France that are not going away. Some issues with Atlanta United as well. As I said off the top, I'm anxious to see what this week looks like for Atlanta United after a very disappointing match in Philadelphia. We're going to be talking about it all week, but that starts this morning at 9:05 on SDH AM with John Nelson and a cast of thousands, not quite, but a few, to talk about everything that happened over the weekend. Hopefully you can watch that on YouTube, on X, on Twitch. If you can't, you can always catch it on demand. If you can't watch it, you can always listen to the podcast as well. Subscribe to Soccer Down Here on your favorite pod catchers. And also, I'll be back with more Morning Espresso tomorrow morning before we head to training to see how things look in Marietta after the loss. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Be back soon.